Hello, this is Hot Indonesia, the program that zeroes in on the week's most talked about stories. I'm Dalton Tanonaka in Jakarta. Here is this week's HI Hot List. Palestine Position, Indonesia's latest act of diplomatic support. Basic instinct why prostitution is inevitable, as the Jakarta governor says. And role model, the need for more Kartinis. My co-hosts this week are two ladies with colorful pasts and unlimited futures. Rahayu Saraswati, Sarah, is a first-year parliament member, anti-human trafficking activist, and baby bump mother-to-be.
Oh.
And hungry all the time.
That's good.
Yeah. Yenny's out. Sitting in for her is Prisma Kinanti, TIC business anchor, host of Indonesia Calling, and honorary Aussie.
Yes.
Can't understand her sometimes. Okay.
What?
Hot topic number one. Palestine position. Indonesia has always been firm in its support of its Middle East friend. And at this past week's Asia-Africa Commemoration Conference, President Joko Widodo announced plans to open an honorary consulate in Ramallah. It's another sign of solidarity that goes back to the Sukarno era. And with that support comes, of course, Indonesia's ongoing refusal to recognize Israel diplomatically. More on that later. First, it has always been this country's position to stand behind Palestine. For those outside of Indonesia who don't know our relationship, the reason is basic.
Yeah. I thought you were going to continue.
No.
What's the reason then? What's the basic reason?
No, you guys grew up here. It stems from common issues.
Well, well, first of all, sorry, you were about to say something.
Oh,
so
no, go ahead.
Okay, never mind. Moving on. I think number one is definitely just our history, first of all. Our history, Indonesia's history of being a colony for so long, 350-something years. And obviously, another fact is that it's part of our constitution, actually. The beginning of it, anyway, it's written in there that we will fight for world peace. And I think that what's been happening in Palestine is it's very much an example of what, we go into Palestine to support their efforts for peace.
Yeah, I guess because I think the conflict has been going on for so long. It's, it doesn't take 5 or 10 years. It's been going on for decades. And I guess it takes more countries to be involved in this conflict to actually help solving this issue, because now, we have a lot of countries involving in this, not only Palestine and Israel, but we need involvement for other countries as well.
Well, Indonesia could play a peacemaker role as it's done in other places, but I want to talk about that later. 70% of United Nations members recognize Palestine, diplomats. Yes. 70%. Okay. Isn't it time for full membership, though, rather than what it has now, non-member observer status?
I think a lot of countries definitely. When I was at the G7, G20 pre-summit meeting on She Matters, for women empowerment and sexual health and reproductive. Yeah, I can't even speak. I think it's the pregnancy hormones.
Motherhood.
Pregnancy hormones. I am blaming everything on pregnancy hormones.
Don't blame it on your baby.
Not on the baby, the hormones.
Okay.
Very specific on that. But back again, I was attending the G7, G20 pre-summit meeting, and even then, that was one of the things that people, raised.
It'll happen, right? It'll happen.
And absolutely. And I think it's very important to hear. To keep having members of parliament and part of the diplomatic efforts from Palestine to keep being in these meetings to drive the point that what's happening there is really a tragedy, and we really need to go back to what was, it was a UN resolution that was already setting the boundaries between Palestine and Israel, which now obviously Israel is not recognizing. That was let me find. Yes, the UN resolution number 242, which already set the boundaries, as in, this is your part. This.
Well, on the other hand, Indonesia should recognize Israel as part of this resolution process. If Indonesia wants to play a mediator role, it must recognize both sides, and it doesn't. It's one of only 32 UN countries that does not recognize Israel.
Okay.
Right?
I've been.
We've got to do it.
Yeah, we only acknowledge the independence of the Palestine when they proclaimed their independence a year after they proclaimed their independence. And now I think that we should do more for Israel, to make it into account for this.
We've got to recognize too, to move this forward. Countries like Indonesia, which has a leadership role among the developing countries, has to say, okay, we take this step forward and we do this. And mostly it's Arab League states who don't recognize Israel. But Indonesia's outside of that sphere. It's got to step forward.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree on that point. However, perhaps, again, playing the devil's advocate here, or, seeing the other side. Obviously, the same goes for those who don't recognize. I mean, Israel itself does not recognize Palestine, and when you're trying to, talk peace between, two sides that they basically just think, no, this is our land, and it's a territorial, it's a territory issue that is now really, I mean, it's costing lots of lives, and it's horrendous.
I mean, religion is a part of that, the whole conflict.
Yes, but I really do think, again, the religion is one of those that's just like, it's up there, it's a surface issue, they use it as, the reason why they're there, etc. But then again, it actually is just, okay, this is my land, this is your land, kind of thing, or you shouldn't even be here, It's very much, again, colonization.
One thing about Indonesia, under the presidency of Abdul Rahman Wahid, Gus Dur tried to warm relations with Israel, and then he was impeached, and that got stalled.
And Indonesia has actually, I mean, just again to kind of draw points on what has happened before in the past, in 1976 and 1979, an Indonesian general was actually chosen by the UN to head up the task force for peacekeeping efforts, and because he was able with his 6,000 peacekeeping soldiers or army or force to actually reach the Camp David agreement between Egypt and Israel. So hopefully that can move forward.
That was a pass forward. There's got to be movement before it goes forward. Okay, Hot Indo will continue shortly. Prostitution, ignore it or accept it? You're watching Hot Indonesia with Sarah, guest host Prisma, Kinanti, and me. Here's hot topic number 2, basic instinct. A 24-year-old teacher is in jail for murder after a 25-year-old woman was found strangled in her boarding house. Police say she was selling sex and was killed when she told her customer that he smelled bad. Jakarta Governor Basuki Purnama had this to say about the sex industry. Although it's taboo, it's inevitable. I know he's going to get criticized for that, but he's right. Even in the most holiest of countries, there are people who need to make money. It's an economic issue, and selling your body sometimes is the only option.
I knew you would say things like that just to get me to say something.
I'm just saying. No. It's he wasn't supporting or condoning. He was saying, I'm not defending Ahok, but he's saying that in every country, it's inevitable. You're going to have people doing it because they can't make money any other way.
You're taking like a bit of his statement.
Okay, so
and then the most important part of it out of that.
You tell me what you got out of his statement, and then you issued a news release in response.
I did.
That's creating waves out of this.
That created a whole lot of.
What did he say, and then what did you say?
He said that basically he wants to create a red light district in Jakarta because of that.
He did say that.
Yes, he did. He actually issued a statement.
If we're going to have it, you must.
He is disappointed that his idea of creating a red light district in Jakarta has been rejected by various figures and groups.
Rahayu Saraswati.
And obviously me.
Okay. And your response was?
That's after he got rejected by I don't know who.
Your response was?
But my response was that I think that obviously it focuses on the failure, for lack of a better word, the failure of the government to make the people's lives better. Because you are right, it is an economic issue. You know what's really crazy? I was saying this in one of the TV channels that invited me because of the issue, because of the statement I issued, and somebody commented on my Instagram saying that was a stupid commentary. It's nothing to do with the economy. Yes, everybody can be poor, but everybody can be prostituted as well. And I basically said, look. the reason why I said that it sheds a light on the failure, because it is. You cannot look at prostitution without looking at the root cause.
Okay.
The
But
root cause of
the-
it, obviously, is that many of them. I'm not saying all of them are
Many what?
are this way. That many of them do not choose that profession if they had any other options to
Okay, look,
earn
there is
a living.
prostitution in the United States. There's prostitution in Japan. These are developed countries. They have options, but they do it because it's not economic reasons. So it's going to be some reason.
But here's the thing:
and
in
even-
Indonesia, mainly it is.
I understand,
all
I
of us
understand.
who
But I'm
have been
saying that it's
activists and
not
advocates who
purely-
have talked to these women, mostly women.
We can't blame a developing country conditions for prostitution
You
because
ca-
it
and
is in develop-
you cannot put what's happening in America the same as what's happening in
That's
Indonesia.
what I'm
You
saying.
cannot
It's not an
exactly
economic situation.
exactly. And you know what? We
Well,
need to learn from them. America has already. I'm sorry, I'm not even giving you space here, but seriously, America has. They are learning from their mistake. They put a law against prostitution, right? But they're learning that that's basically
It's legal in some states.
Yeah, but they are basically saying that's a mistake in a lot of cases because most of these prostitutes, sex workers, are victims of circumstances. And when you're talking about the industry of prostitution, it means that many of them are doing it against their will and that they are being exploited for.
Yeah, and it's not because they want to do
Economic
it. Now, Prisma, you went to school in Australia. You lived there for a while. I mean, there's prostitution in Australia, I'm
It
sure.
does, yeah.
Yeah. So it's
It
I mean,
exists.
yeah, that's right. I agree with Sarah that we cannot compare the situation of prostitution in Indonesia with other developed countries. But in Indonesia, it's like everywhere. What can we do to actually, limit the place of prostitution? Because like here, if it's like just everywhere. It's not in big places such as or like clubs, but it's like even like in the small huts. If you're going through the road, the Pantura road, it's like small huts like everywhere.
The reason why I'm completely against it is because you're saying that being a prostitute is okay as a way of living. And
no, I think what our
it's-
government leaders say, if it's going to happen, at least let's regulate it and protect these women.
Yes,
They're going to do
but
it
it's
whether you have these
basically a
houses or not.
short-term solution for a long-term problem.
Well, I don't think you'll ever eradicate it, though.
It's not talking about eradication, but I'm talking about, we need to look at the issues,
So you
and
keep
that
it
is
illegal,
an
and
economic
women
issue.
get killed like this, and then
It's
women
an economic
get medical problems.
And it's a social issue because girls like the victim here, she got into it because of materialism. And you know what? It's really sad for me to see the next generation, 15, 14-year-olds saying it's okay to sell their body
I
to
don't-
buy the next bag
No, I don't think
or
they're
shoes.
saying it's okay, but I mean, should government regulate the industry? I mean, that's the question. Look at
We
conservative.
don't have laws in place
Well,
yet.
then that's where people in parliament have to.
Exactly.
But
We don't have laws in
let's
place
compare
yet.
our closest neighbor, conservative Singapore. They have the Geylang district, which you would think Singapore in all its prissiness. And I don't mean Prisma,
Prissiness.
their goal is to keep their workers safe, and that's the goal of government, to keep your residents safe. That's what they're trying to do. They're not saying we condone prostitution.
Yes,
I don't
but
think so.
But you know
With
what?
Mr. Lee Kuan Yew,
Let's not be naive and think that for once, first of all, that the industry of prostitution has nothing to do with human trafficking, and that's my point.
Of course, that's
you
a
know
whole
what?
other- no.
But it is, because when you're talking about the business, again, the business of prostitution, and when I'm talking about that, it's the pimps, and I'm talking about
That's the extreme.
The what? No, it's the truth.
No, I mean, look-
the ones that are running this industry, the ones promoting it, the ones who are using it to gain profit, to gain money, are those who are the very same who are driving the human trafficking industry.
That's a dark side of it. What about,
Which is fact.
Real quickly, what about the young men and women here in Jakarta who work in offices, go to schools every day, and then like work the clubs to earn more money, either to help themselves.
that's
to help
a very American
No one's
way of
forcing
thinking.
them to do that.
That's a very American way of thinking.
No. It's just an objective way. It's not a.
No,
it's
no,
not
no,
a
no, no, because
nationality.
that's not
I'm
what-
just saying what I see
Yes,
when you
we
go to
have
clubs.
we have a rise of more young girls and and boys who are now starting to see this as a part-time endeavor. To earn more money for what? It's not. I'm sorry. It's
A lot
not
of them
to
are
go to
supporting
school.
families,
It's
supporting, helping.
economic problem
There we go back.
I think
again.
it's
All right.
more like the lifestyle, economic problems.
I mean,
also the rise
if
of the
they're
middle
doing
class.
it to buy Louis Vuitton,
I'm not saying
then
it's.
that's-
I'm
then
not
that's-
saying that it's not there where there are those who are doing it for whatever reason that's different from economic or
Okay.
forced.
Yeah,
But
so you just have a problem with government endorse or condoning it by saying that we can have it in a certain place. Okay.
yeah,
I get it.
because it doesn't actually solve the issue.
I got it. Okay. More Hot Indo is ahead. Who are Indonesia's female rock stars? You're watching Hot Indonesia from Jakarta. Here is hot topic number 3, role model. Indonesia recently celebrated Kartini Day in honor of the young Javanese woman called the heroine of women's rights. Her ideas became popular after her writings were published following her death in 1904 at the age of 25, very young. She called for freedom to pursue educational opportunities and legal equality at a time when women had very low status. Now, to mark Kartini Day, women around the country wear the traditional kabaya to work or school, but it's obviously a lot more than just dress up.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I introduced a a slightly different way of thinking about how people especially in, I hate to say developed and developing countries because that's not the situation now, but in Western countries, they have a very specific way of thinking about feminism and the patriarchal communities like in Indonesia, which is, to be honest, a lot of the men here, I've heard from the men, they feel like, wait a second, what's this women empowerment? Because we feel like you're our equals anyway. And then
Do you think they believe that?
no, they do. I mean, I know my husband does.
Okay, so
I know
certain
a lot
men.
No, I know a lot of men do. And if you're talking about the men, especially in the villages, they do want the best for their daughters. They do want them to go to school. They do want them. You've heard about the guy, the becak driver
Yeah,
who
of course,
sent her
yeah.
daughter all the way. So it's not true that the men here are patriarchal in the sense that they don't want their kids to succeed. They just look
well,
at them
women's
as their
rights have
children.
come a long way in this country, of course. But
But unfortunately, I'm sorry, I have to cut off. My statement in the G7 G20 summit was that, in the pre-summit meeting about She Matters, was that I'm sorry to say, but the concept of patriarchal of the Western world was introduced through colonialism. Because when you're talking about culture here, it never existed before that there was that. Kartini was part of the elite society where her father
Dutch colonialism
was
society.
part
Okay,
of the
I get
Dutch
it. I mean,
colonialism
you can't blame it all on
society.
colonialism because
No, I'm not blaming it all, but it's an idea.
Religion plays a major role, and some say
yeah.
it's a hindrance in more equality with men. How
In
do you
some places.
overcome that? Because as we know, certain religions say the man is basically the emperor or the king.
Well, I guess it goes back to what we are going through right now. I mean, the equalities of women before men, it has developed for many, many years here, and it's also influenced by our culture as well, not only our religion. But I guess in this modern era, it's probably more into the things of respecting women rather than putting them in inequality.
Well, you got to take baby steps, I guess, to get to full equality. Kartini specifically, some people say Kartini is given too much credit, and that other unsung women actually took up arms to fight colonialists, and she just was noted because she wrote some things, and that was
Yes.
published later. Is that a
We've
criticism
had
about her? Is that a
amazing
criticism about
heroines.
her, or is it because of the lack of other role models or knowledge of the other role models?
What do you mean, is that a criticism?
I mean, did she really do anything, people say, or is it because others are more unsung and that we don't know about the other female heroes? Or are there others? Who are the other female
That's a
role
good
models?
Those are good questions. My favorite actually is not Kartini, to be honest. My role model is one of the first female admirals in the world,
Okay.
which we have in Indonesia in 200, 300 years ago, Cut Malahayati.
And she ran a tight ship.
She was amazing. I mean, I'm saying people, like the Portuguese and other forces were afraid to come to Indonesia because she was, on the northern
She
tip.
kicked their butts.
She kicked their butts.
Yeah, all right.
She said, go home. This is not where you belong.
Yeah.
I
get that when I visit some people's houses. Prisma,
What did you do?
Hey, I just said, may I go out with your daughter? Prisma, any other names come to mind, females?
Well, actually, not historically,
What,
I think.
present-day women?
Yeah.
Like who? Who
Well,
will be a future Kartini?
not future Kartini, past Kartini actually. It's just because she passed away just a couple of months ago. So there was a woman who sold some knitwear and also some traditional fabrics on the street just nearby in Sudirman. So she lost her daughters and her family back then during the riot in 1998, and she was living by herself for 10, 15 years, almost 20, I guess. And then she was really thankful, even though like she only, get $50,000, about $5 per week.
So inspiring, kind of. And
Yeah.
what was her name? Do you have her name?
I actually
You don't have her name, but a woman who was on the street and
Yeah.
surviving after
Yeah,
family.
but she's-
Those
I
are the
mean-
good stories about Indonesia,
Yes.
especially for women. Okay, it is feedback time. Your chance to be on TV. Diana posted this on our Hot Indonesia Facebook page. Nice to see TIC on Ziggo, the Dutch channel, and we are thrilled to be available on cable in every cable household in the Netherlands. If you have any feedback on what you've heard or would like to suggest a topic for us to tackle, all of you in Holland, please email us at hotindo@theindonesiachannel.com or comment through our Indonesia channel Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages. Here's what we do. It's called Final Words. Prisma.
My final words will be, if you want to let go of something, please remember what makes you hold on for quite a long time. So my point is that if you want to hold grudge against someone or start to think about negativity on someone, please think about what they have done in your life. Think about their kindness, not only in our close relationship with our family or friends, but also in public places, our relationship with our colleagues, at work, everywhere.
You've covered all bases there. I thought it was going to be a romantic thing. But
No.
okay.
It's not more than just a romantic relationship.
Let it go.
Yeah, let him go.
More
Okay.
than that. More
Final
than that.
words, Miss Sarah. You got to get on your way.
Okay, yes, I do. My final words, of course, is to do with my statement. It's not that I'm waging war against prostitution, okay? But the main issue is that in Jakarta, we have had a red light district before. It existed. And when it was shut down, and now is the biggest Islamic center, one of the biggest in Jakarta. But the community surrounding this Islamic center is still there, and the children who were there, who were children at that time, they're still suffering from the trauma. And my family's foundation is still working there, and we're still seeing the side effects. And it is affecting even the young girls. And you're seeing 15-year-olds wearing makeup, and they're already selling themselves because they saw what happened, and they saw their own mothers, their own aunts doing that. And that's not the kind of legacy we want to leave behind for the future of this country. And that is why I made the statement that I made.
We got your point. My final words. The recent global gatherings in Jakarta created the expected travel delays, adding to our reputation as having the world's worst traffic. But you know what?
It actually hasn't been that bad.
You know what? If we didn't have the congestion, Miss Sarah, that means we wouldn't have a growing economy. So I say bring something to read, a bottle of water, enjoy yourself in your car, and keep reminding yourself that people want to do business here, and that's why it's congested.
Careful not to drink too
And
much
good
or you
music.
have to go to the toilet.
Bring your porta potty. And that is Hot Indonesia for this week. For Sarah and Prisma and Dalton Tanonaka, see you next time.